Do the old Hollywood countdown.
If anyone could pull it off, it's Joe doing that, right?
I think he's supposed to use jazz hands.
Yeah.
We're the spirit leaders.
Their family attended the board meeting. She was just part of it. Good evening! Welcome to the Skokie 68 Board of Education meeting of March 16th, 2023. For one last time, Phyllis, can I get a roll call?
Bill Jordan. Espinosa. Here. Joseph.
Here.
Ruckner.
Here.
Sturbins.
Here.
Sullivan. Here. Warshaw. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments who wish to speak? We do not. Therefore, we will move directly to our superintendent's reports.
Good, thank you very much. We'll start with our first one. It is our MAP student growth report. Normally we don't make one this time of year, but we had some positive news about student growth we thought the board might want to hear. So Dr. Samajetti.
Yeah, so I want to share with you some of our fall to winter MAP growth data, and then also as part of this presentation talk with you about an alternative to MAP that we're considering for next school year. So this is our reading data for the district and by grade level, the percentage of students who met their projected growth from fall to winter. And what I take away from this is that we are heading back towards where we were in 2019 before COVID hit and we had a dip. So you can see most of the grade levels are edging up beyond where they were. We're getting closer to that 50% mark, which is what NWEA says to expect, 50% of students making their growth goals. So this is the same information but broken down by subgroups. So our students who qualify for free and reduced lunch, our English learners, our students in special education, all are hovering around or a little above the 50% mark compared to our all students. So achievement gap in terms of growth is very minimal, and in some places very minimal compared to all students. So again, making great progress with those students. This is just a little bit of information for you regarding reading and math. So another piece that MAP gives us is a projection for achievement on state testing. So they use MAP scores to project whether a student will be likely to meet or exceed standards on IR in the spring. In 2021, we had projections for reading of 34% projected to meet standards, and our reality was 29% met standards on IR in spring of 22. Math, we were projected to have about 22%, and we saw 26% meet that benchmark. We have obviously not finished our testing this year, so we don't know those actual results. But our data is telling us that about 33% should meet standards on IR for reading and about 25% on math. So I always look to that because it is a predictor for us. It's never spot on, but it gives us a general idea of how our students might perform. This is an EL lens of students that were projected to meet standards. So of all of the students who took the reading MAP test, 1,090, 360 of those students were projected to meet IR standards. If you look at the breakdown of the other areas, there are students who were never EL. We had 188 of those students meet, which was, I believe, 54%, if I can see the numbers and the colors correctly from here, this vantage point. Then we have the next category are students who were screened because they indicated a second language was spoken in their home. They may or may not have qualified for services, but they were screened. Students who are in the EL program. And then we have our former EL students. So those are students who have exited the program based on their WIDA scores. Fully exited means that they are several years out of that. They've been monitored for a number of years. And then we have our parent refusals. But I think what is striking here is if you look at the former EL students, 54% compared to the all students, which includes students who were never ELs. This really is testament to the fact that students in our programming, once they move through the program, move through the school years, develop that academic language, get to the point where they are on level with their monolingual peers, outperform their monolingual peers. Research shows that, and our data is also echoing that. Yeah. So this is math view. We're looking a little stronger in math than we are in reading. But again, grade levels kind of closing in on where they were back in 2019. Here is math growth by subgroup. All subgroups above the 50th percent, which is awesome. And here's the EL lens again. So map alternative exploration. We've been a map district for a lot of years. Many districts in our area are map districts across the country. In thinking about how to best serve students and how to think about helping students who need some additional catch up from COVID and from all of the interruptions that came with that, we looked at a few different options to try to think about what might best serve our teachers in identifying how to develop instruction that meets students' needs, but also what are some programs out there that could actually have student-facing time to help develop some skills. So we looked at MAP through a critical eye. We thought about the strengths of MAP. It's nationally normed. It provides us measures of growth and proficiency. Our teachers are really familiar with it. They know how to read the data. It's a well-known entity in the district. But it does have some missed opportunities. It is not necessarily aligned with our instructional resources. It doesn't have personalized or student-facing learning opportunities. And sometimes it's hard to make connections between the data and instruction. So a student might have this math score, but what does that mean for our math curriculum and how they're performing on math assessments? Sometimes it's hard to make those connections. So we tried to see if we could find a program that could potentially fill in some of those missed opportunities for us. So the Department of Instruction went through a review in the last school year of alternate assessments. We looked at several. We looked at Dreambox. We actually piloted Exact Path or implemented Exact Path during COVID. That was not a successful journey. We looked at Imagine Learning. We looked at Math Accelerator, and we looked at a program called Success Maker. And really, iReady stood out as the one with the greatest potential. This is a map showing you all of the surrounding districts that are using iReady, so that we reached out to districts that are implementing it just to find out what their true, real experience was with it. And all of the feedback was positive, and we felt good about digging into it a little bit more. So some highlights for iReady, really they're kind of four big rocks. Obviously it has an assessment side that provides us a diagnostic similar to MAP. It also provides growth and proficiency measures. It gives us additional assessment tools that are beyond the diagnostic that can help us drill down into specific teaching points that need to occur for students to identify how to fill in skill gaps. And the reports are really easy to read and decipher, both for parents and for teachers. It also has a personalized learning side, so students are placed into a personalized learning path called My Path that is specifically geared to fill in gaps and strengthen areas that come straight from their diagnostic assessment. Teachers can override that if they need to. If a student has a diagnostic testing day where they're just clicking some answers and the teacher sees that that score is not necessarily a match to what they see in the classroom, the teacher can adjust that My Path. Students interact with the learning in a fun and engaging way. It's a game-based scenario for them. And again, there are easy to read progress reports for teachers that tell teachers how students are doing in the My Path. There is a very robust teacher toolbox that provides all kinds of instruction, tutorials, lesson plans, quizzes, family letters that teachers can pull from to use as well. And then the last little piece is that the parent company of iReady is Curriculum Associates. And they own Elevation, which is a program that we have implemented in the district that helps us serve our guide instruction for our English learners. So the fact that iReady data can automatically be dumped into Elevation to kind of strengthen the strategies that are within Elevation for our EL teachers is really a nice point. So we did an iReady pilot. We started in August, and we still have teachers that are in the pilot. We had about 40 plus teachers across the district. All 4 schools had people in the pilot. About 700 students took the diagnostic, and about 500 of those are active in the personalized learning. We had some specific questions that we wanted answered in the pilot. So is it quality? Is it a quality program? Will the students be engaged? Will teachers find it useful for teaching and learning purposes? And can it fully replace MAP? So not only will we get the same data out of it that we rely on with MAP, but can the growth data be comparable for purposes of our teacher evaluation calculations of student growth? So both of those were important pieces for us. So we surveyed the teachers who are piloting, and out of 27 respondents, these are the themes for 3 of the big questions that we asked. Tell us about the student experience, what's been positive, what's been negative. And you can see on the screen, 20 of the 27 specifically talked about students being motivated and engaged. There's a pathway that's differentiated. There were some moments of frustration when they fail a quiz and they have to restart a lesson, but no kid wants to do that. And the diagnostic assessment took a little bit more time for some people. Another question was, what do you think will be the most beneficial about using iReady as a feature replacement? And again, most of them spoke to the personalized lessons and the student pathway, the lessons and assessments that come with it, additional resources for the teachers for small group instruction, and then the teachers can also assign specific lessons to students. And then the last question was about any reservations for replacing. 8 people said no reservations, 7 people said we just have to make sure we have time to learn this new thing, which obviously makes sense, and there might be some additional class time that is necessary for iReady. So overall, big thumbs up from from teachers who are piloting and from a lot of our instructional support team who are supporting teachers in providing tier 2 instruction. So want to make sure you kind of understand the difference between what iReady will show us in terms of data and what MAP will show. So MAP growth data starts with a student's starting grit score That is used along with their grade level, their test subject, to determine about how many RIT points they should grow between assessments. So between fall and winter, between winter and spring. As I said, national norms indicate that about 50% of students meet those projected growth goals, and that's the norm. MAP either says that students met their growth or that they didn't. So it's a yes or no. You met it, you didn't. There's no, you are making progress towards, it's just yes or no. The difference between MAP and iReady is that iReady tells you the progress towards your growth. So they have two different growth goals. One is the typical growth, again, based on norm data, based on the starting scale score. They use a scale of 100 to 800. And again, based on their starting scale score, their grade level, their test grade, what is the typical growth for a student with that scale score in that grade in math, and then a typical growth is identified for that student. That is considered to be something that most students can make because the typical growth is a realistic growth goal. For students that are below grade level, they also identify a stretch growth goal, and that is meant to close the achievement gap. So only about 20 to 30% of students that are given a stretch growth goal will make that goal in one academic year. It typically takes longer because they are below grade level and they have to close that gap. So again, iReady measures student progress toward meeting their growth goals. So you can see, and parents can see, and teachers can see how far along they are. You know, have they made the amount of progress that we would expect in winter for spring versus they met it or they didn't. So some similarities between the two, they both split achievement into 5 different levels. The names of these levels are different, but they split achievement into 5 levels. They both look at growth. They both use national norms. The differences, MAP splits achievement into IAR projections and what they call quintiles, while iReady splits achievement into on-grade level language. So on grade level, above grade level, below grade level, so on and so forth. MAP looks at growth percentiles, and again, whether they made the growth goal or not, and iReady looks at progress towards that. And both use norm studies, but norm studies obviously were different. So here is just a little snapshot of what iReady growth data looks like. This is our actual data from our piloting students. So our students as a whole who took the diagnostic made 60% progress towards their typical growth. So it's super easy to read graphic. Again, they say that between fall and winter, you want 50%, right? You want to be halfway towards your growth goal. So our kiddos were at 60%. The graphic on the bottom shows you the placement distribution of our students, and it also tells you from where you started. So if you see on the far left, the mid or above grade level is at 21% of students fell within that grade level placement, and that is up from 15% in the fall. So you can see you want to obviously grow the green areas, you want to shrink the red areas, and shrink the yellow areas. So again, super easy, simple. You can see progress that's being made in a very easy to understand manner. So I apologize, that was our reading, and then here is our math, same information. Family reports, very easy to read and understand. They provide the parents with an overall score. They can see where they fall in terms of the grade level and what is typical. but families are also given specific examples for areas to work on with their child, which is the information at the bottom there.
Mhm.
Parents always want to know, how can I help my child, right? iReady gives that information. The reports for teachers for each student are very robust. So our recommendation is that we move to iReady for next school year. We feel like it provides us a lot more than math is able to. Any questions or comments?
The one thing I couldn't find trying to do my own looking into it, it looks like the actual assessments take roughly the same length of time between the two. Will a student take the same number of assessments? When I saw that some of the teachers were concerned about additional time for this, I didn't know if there would be more individual tests that needed to be
It's
done.
one diagnostic for math and one diagnostic for reading, which is the same as math.
Okay,
So it's
so it's
It'll-
expected it'll be roughly the same amount of time.
roughly, and it is dependent on the student, depending on how long they take with it. Some kids take their time and it takes time, and some don't. So that will vary, but it should generally be about what math takes.
Thank you.
Any others?
So with that, would it still be tested 3 times throughout the year? Is that like, because it seemed like there was also like the work they could do in that same program with their scores,
Mhm.
and so it's, the 3, fall, winter, spring testing
Yeah.
periods, and then work in the program.
Work
In
in the
between
program in
those.
between, yes.
I just wanted to know how well this particular program works in terms of accommodations for special needs, for instance, for kiddos that have visual processing issues. Are they able to manipulate it? Because Matt did have that capacity, and I'm just wondering if this one does too.
Yeah, we did not fully investigate that. We didn't actually have any special ed teachers in the pilot. There might have been classroom teachers with a student in their homeroom, but we didn't specifically look at that in the pilot with any of those teachers. But they do provide similar types of accommodations and modifications. The nice thing too is that teachers can again adjust that learning. So the content is accessible to students and make it work for them.
How does this connect with the content in iReady? How does that connect to getting them also ready for IAR in terms of the content? Is it like similar? Is it like progressive? Like, so for the elementary kiddos who are taking this as they go to junior high, does it connect? Does the content connect where that kind of questioning is going to lead to higher IAR scores?
Yeah, it's all aligned to Illinois standards,
Okay.
which math is as well.
Yep.
The nice part about iReady is that it gives you on grade level language. So for some students that can be and for some teachers that can be a little startling to
Yeah.
see, that a child is 2 grade levels below. Map might have given a RIT score that equated to that,
Sure.
but it's a softer language
Okay.
to just have a RIT score versus 2 grade levels below. I think that draws attention to the standards that teachers need to specifically work on with students.
Okay.
Like this is a specific standard that the child is struggling with, and iReady gives in the teacher toolbox suggestions for moving that student forward with that standard. We don't have that with math. We don't get that explicit connection. Another assessment that iReady has is called the Standards Mastery Assessment. So if there are particular standards that a teacher is concerned about, she can give that very quick assessment. It's a 10 to 15 minute assessment whose questions focus only on that particular standard to measure how the student is doing, and again, get feedback on what within that standard the student did well on and what the student missed, so that instruction can be geared towards that. And again, we don't have that kind of availability with math.
And then the follow-up question is, so the presentation was awesome. I like the color breakdown. With the students who are in the yellow, is there a way to break that down to like question standards so teachers can see like students in the yellow, this is the specific skill they have to work on? I know with SAT, PSAT, you're able to break it down to the types of questions, and then that's kind of like the focus. Does iReady kind of provide like a differentiated question analysis so teachers can focus on students who are, because if you're in the yellow, you're right at grade level, but just a little bit below. So if we want to shift students from the yellow into the green, if it gives you that question by question analysis of this strand is what this grade level needs to work on.
It doesn't give a question by question analysis because they're not gonna give up what their questions are, like they're not gonna publish those. But what it does is it breaks down in the domains, the different sub-skills.
Yeah, exactly.
So it breaks it down by skills
It
for
does, okay.
teachers.
Okay, so then they can focus on that specific sub-skill to move them up as they go
Correct.
through the year.
Correct,
Awesome.
yes.
How does iReady deal with, so you're like, you find out if a child is below grade level or at grade level.
Mhm.
Does it also identify above grade level to be able to help the AIM teachers with?
Yes, yeah, it sure does.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
She moved right in from one report to the other, so.
That was.
That flowed real well, so.
Sorry, no break.
You're ready.
I have a couple of short just updates. As you probably saw, we declared March Thank a Teacher Month. Hopefully to give teachers a little bit of an extra boost during one of the times of the year where the tank is probably at its lowest right before spring break. And on behalf of the board and the administration, we are sending over catered lunches from Pita Inn on Monday and Tuesday, right before Wednesday's Ramadan starts. So some buildings have chosen Monday, some have chosen Tuesday. So thank you to the teachers that are here in the audience and anybody who's out there in TV land watching. Also, a little bit of news here. We have a teacher, Diego Marin, math teacher over at the junior high, who is an alumni of District 68. And he's also a bit of a celebrity. He has, from what I understand, close to 1 million followers on TikTok. He posts a lot of instructional videos and has gained some news attention on several occasions that has even led to donations to the school.
Didn't he win that
That's
contest last year
Mhm.
with the
Yep.
school sport?
So he recently posted about using ChatGPT in instruction in math, and that got some attention, and our local Fox News affiliate came out to interview him yesterday, and from what we understand, that will be aired on March 30th at 9 p.m. and then again in the morning show on the 31st. So we'll make sure we get a copy of that and get that distributed out there too. I think perhaps we ought to invite Diego Marin to a board meeting to recognize him for his efforts and gaining some notoriety and attention and being recognized as a master math teacher in that regard. So, okay. All right, and then I do have one more. Sorry, I'm just going to have to step out for 10 seconds here.
Check that printer.
So tonight's a bittersweet night. This is Phyllis's last board meeting at the board table, and then she officially retires from the district. We have several things here. These are flowers from Una. She's so sorry she couldn't be here personally. She's out of town, so she sent flowers to you. And then the board is also more flowers.
One for the home, one for the office.
And then
I love
there's
flowers.
also a gift here.
Oh my goodness.
I have had the pleasure and honor of working with Phyllis 15 out of the last 16 years. My math skills, contrary to Diego's, are not quite as competent, but we worked together for many years across 2 different school districts. And after working with her for a few years, I kind of had this realization. I had read this book once upon a time by Robert Greenleaf called Servant Leadership. And it's all about how leadership doesn't always come from the top with people in the positions of power. That many times the most effective leadership comes from people that don't necessarily have the leader role and the title. And I've always thought Phyllis has always embodied that for me in both settings that I've worked with her with. She's a true leader, and she's helped out all the leaders that she's ever worked with, and she has made them all better. And thank you very much.
I wasn't going to cry.
I can't tell you how many times Phyllis improved my thinking or assisted in difficult situations. For that, you have my eternal gratitude. And then, if you'd like to open it, there's also something on there as well that you may remember from once upon a time.
Well, before I do that, in case it's gonna make me cry again, my kids know, I say all the time that, I'm creating rocking chair memories, so that when I'm old and can't do anything else, I have wonderful things to look back on and, be happy about. And working here is one of those memories. I've loved working in this district, working with all the staff, the EA, the classified people, and, doing whatever I could to help them. But the people in this building have become like family to me, and most of the people in this room who I've worked with very closely, you all have no idea how much you mean to me. So thank you for allowing me to serve all of you, because it's really been my pleasure. All right, now I'll Tears everywhere. Thank you. It's the saying about making a difference in the starfish. I know everybody in the room already knows what that is.
I'll briefly add that it is not possible to overstate the significant impact that Phyllis has had on our efficiency and the efficacy of this board. I was lucky to grow up with a mom who ran the front office of my middle school, so I was aware from a very early age how vital the staff is in the day-to-day operations of the school, and I remember her being intimidated by the woman who ran the school board office. I grew up with a special amount of respect for that position.
Both chairs.
Phyllis has always made it look practically effortless. She retains vast pools of knowledge that is ever-changing. She's aware of the protocols that the newly elected, myself included, stumble over on a regular basis. We're only just starting to see what our lives are going to be like without you in the room. I'm thrilled that we were able to prolong from your various positions to soften the landing. I speak for Katrina, who was mortified that she couldn't be here tonight. When I say that it has been an honor and a privilege to serve with you, beside you, and frankly, wherever you've sat us at this table.
Thank you so very much, everybody. This is another rocking chair memory this night. Thank you very much.
Our next item of business is the reading and acceptance of minutes. May I have a motion?
I call for a motion to approve the minutes from the February 16th, 2023 Board of Education regular meeting.
Second.
Espinosa.
Yes.
Joseph.
Yes.
Ruffner.
Yes.
Sturban.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The consent agenda is our next item of business. Does any member wish to remove any item for separate consideration? Then may I have a motion?
I call for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, which includes a personnel report authorizing the resignation of administrative staff, the change of status, leave of absence, and resignation of licensed staff, the hire, change of status, leave of absence, and resignation of classified staff, including the termination of Carrie Panarese. Financial reports, pay orders and expenditures, and second readings of Board of Education policies. 5, 320, 615, 6250, 6255, 6260, 750, 770, 7100, and 7180.
Second.
Joseph,
Yes.
Ruffner,
Yes.
Sturback,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Espinoza.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we move on to our reports and discussion items. We start with Ms. Espinoza and a little note from the NTDSE.
Yeah, so while I don't have a report from this month, I do have 3 friends of NTDSE that I wanted to share with everyone, so that we can all see kind of the great things that our district staff is doing in coordination with NTDSE. So this is our first friend of NTDSE. Every week, Ms. Shook devotes time to our NTDSE class novel study lesson. She encourages our students to read, participate in group discussions, and take books from the school library in order to further their interest in reading. She is always positive and supportive and very well liked by both students and staff. She is a true friend of NTDSE. So that was for Ms. Shook at the junior high. And then we have Jill Marquardt. Jill goes above and beyond to make everyone feel welcome. She helps with anything she can. She will print, laminate, and help bring students to the classroom or to their parents. And that was for Ms. Marquardt. And then our final friend of NTDSE is Mr. Zika. Mr. Zika goes above and beyond to make our students feel included and comfortable. His dedication and attention to our students' individual needs and learning styles make him truly a friend of NTDSE. Those were our 3 friends for the
Is Old Orchard?
Old Orchard Junior High, yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Joe Marquardt from our early
Early
childhood.
childhood, I apologize.
No, that's quite all right. Wonderful, thank you. Move on to our Ed Rec.
Again, I can't follow that. That'd be nearly as fun. They are in legislative session right now down in Springfield, and they are setting records for the number of bills that are being proposed, not just in education, but in everything. So the meeting was a speed round going through some of the bills, and again, just a bill at this point that could have the most impact on us and other districts in the area. A lot of focus because they are getting some traction on some comprehensive TIF reform legislation that one of the big things they're trying to do is to make sure that benefits of TIFs go not just to big box stores, but also to smaller local businesses, but to do it in a way that doesn't impact the bottom line of school districts and other entities that rely on those taxes. So it's interesting. I think I understood roughly 80% of it, which is a lot better than when I first started going to these meetings, so progress. And then there are some interesting bills being proposed that would affect tenure and trying to make entry into the field a little bit more appealing and make tenure protections a little bit easier to access. And there's a bill pending that would require accessibility of kosher or halal foods at the schools. There are a lot of questions about how logistically that could happen because there are very few companies in Illinois that prepackage and provide that. And so if it was mandatory statewide, they're worried that we could be required to ship halal meals from downstate Illinois. and have them ready each day. And also they could crush this one little company that is making this when they're now required to do it for the whole state. So it's the kind of thing that's a really interesting idea, and it was a really fascinating conversation. My read was I don't think it's going to be at a point that it would be successfully implemented as a mandate, at least this session, just because there are so many on the ground steps that would need to happen to make that realistic. But again, just really cool to see that on a legislative level, they're being thoughtful about things like that. So tune in next month when we might have things passed, but right now it's just a lot of conversation and trying to give us some guidance. So that was it.
We heard a report at the regional board meeting last night, where they just talked about how many bills, the flurry of activity, and there's a little bit of just vote for it out of committee, just to get it out of committee, and so there's all kinds of people in that flurry of activity watching for them. Some bills that
And they are consulting, the legislators are consulting educators on every single one of these bills.
that's wild.
That that was sarcasm.
Yeah. Oh no, I was going to say one of the big concerns is there's a bill for all-day kindergarten, which we're blessed with, but not all districts can afford. And there was another one that I know they were fighting for. I wrote it down. I recall which, but yeah, they're not getting much sleep.
Yeah.
In the Capitol these days.
And there's also a movement afoot. If you're going to add all these, for every mandate you add, you should take away 10. Because we are a little mandate rich right now in the state of Illinois in education, and the vast majority of those mandates are unfunded and take time.
Indeed. All right, I think we move on to our Board of Ed agreements, part 5.
The last part.
This is it. The 5th is always the best. Not in the case of the Rocky movies, unfortunately. Where are we? I don't have it up, sorry. No, I don't, great. Anyone care to do some reading, or would you like me to? I can take these. Individual board members will self-monitor to ensure one person's request for information does not divert an inappropriate amount of time from staff efforts to achieve district goals. Board members will ask for information that they need to know in order to make an informed decision rather than what's nice to know.
Should the superintendent determine that a request for information may require more than 30 minutes to fulfill, at his, her discretion, she may bring that request to the board for a consensus to proceed.
Do we need to update our pronouns?
Yes,
Yeah.
Well done. And Noel.
At the discretion of the superintendent, one member's request for additional information results in all members receiving or having the same access to the information. One gets, all gets.
Is the one time it's okay to reply all to an email you only got from one person. I think that's it. Any questions, clarification on this? I think we're all, this tends to be how we operate. And moving on.
Board members will presume positive intention when interacting with the superintendent or other board members.
Enough.
Board members will ask questions with the intention of getting to yes in order to support the superintendent's recommendation.
Very nice.
That concludes our 5-month series of.
Thank you for tuning in, as we're all reminded how to do our volunteer work. Wonderful. Thank you. We've got the first reading for a couple Board of Ed policies.
Okay. Board policy 7190, student behavior. Any questions? Not the changes. They are all relatively minor.
Yeah.
Hearing no questions. Board policy 7250, student support services. Any questions about the legislative changes embedded there? Hearing none. Board policy 7285, anaphylaxis prevention, response, and management program. And second class. 7290, suicide and depression awareness and prevention. Questions there? Again, the changes here
Very
are
minimal. Yeah.
very minor. Policy 7340, student records. Question. All right, that concludes our first readings for this month. You'll see these policies come back next month, and actually at this time, we are caught up with the last policy packet we received back in, they said it was October, but it was really November. We should be getting another one in the next month or so, and then we'll get to start the process all over again, but I'm guessing we'll probably have a break and not have first reading policies for April.
One. And then we move on to our action items, starting with the next item of business, which is the adoption of the resolution for a reduction in force. May I have a motion?
Call for a motion to approve the resolution for the honorable dismissal of the following licensed staff pursuant to section 2412 of the School Code 105 ICLS 5/24-12. Namira Ehani and Mahek Khatun as presented.
Second.
So this year, you'll probably notice the number of RIFs is down significantly from what it's traditionally been. A combination of factors contributed to that. One being our kindergarten enrollment has come back stronger this year than we've seen in the last handful of years. So we will have more sections of kindergarten. That's usually where a lot of our elementary RIFs come from, is when it looks like we're going to have less kids and less sections than we had previously. At this time, it looks like we're on track to probably have 3 kindergartens at each school, which used to be kind of a standard number of classrooms across the board. So enrollment looks like we might be turning around our downward turn. We'll see how that looks for next year. I think we have 1 classroom teacher retiring at the elementary level, and then we have 2 classroom teachers at the elementary level who interviewed for the new science teacher positions. So again, that created some additional opening and wiggle room there, so we didn't have to do as many RIFs. And then another area that you would typically see is that we would have RIFed our art teachers, since they have been part-time all these years. And the reason that we would do that is their FTE would shift a little bit from year to year, depending on how many classroom sections there were to teach. We are looking at having them do an art class to kindergarten this year. The science, we're looking at 45 minutes for the 1st through 5th grade classes. At kindergarten, we're looking at 2 30-minute sessions a week. So then they would get art to make up for that time that they had less of science. In addition to that, every Friday our absence rate goes up significantly. And we, like every school district across the country, struggle to find substitute teachers to cover all of our classrooms. So we've decided to make our art teachers full-time teachers, but Friday they won't be scheduled to teach art. They will be an in-house sub available there, because every Friday we are short subs every single Friday. So this gets our art teachers up to full-time. For some of them, that's always been sort of a sore point if they're looking for full-time employment. So this makes them whole. It's a full-time teacher, gives us some extra in-house sub coverage on Fridays, and then also provides art formal art instruction to our kindergartners. So it feels like a win-win all the way around. So they're not on the RIF list this year. We brought this idea to our 3 art teachers, and they all 3 agreed that they would like to go forward.
Fantastic. Any questions?
All right, Ruffner,
Yes.
Sturbens,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yes.
Joseph.
Yes.
Thank you.
Our next item of business is the adoption of the K-5 science curriculum. May I have a motion?
I call for a motion to adopt the K-5 science curriculum building blocks at a cost of $56,158.61 as presented.
Second.
So this is our adopted curriculum for kindergarten through 5th grade. It's called Building Blocks. We went through a number of resources to look at them for their level of alignment to NGSS and the different way that science is taught these days, and also looked at curriculum that is accessible for our English learners, something that can be taught in an engaging and interactive inquiry-based manner, and Building Blocks was the clear winner. We're very excited about it.
Any questions?
It was just a fun invoice to read through. Modeling clay and Velcro and aquarium rocks.
Sturban,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yes.
Joseph,
Yes.
Ruffner.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. And our next item of business is entering closed session of the board. May I have a motion?
Call for a motion to enter closed session to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity.
Second.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Espinoza, Joseph,
Yes.
Ruffner,
Yes.
Sturban.
Yes.
Thank you.
We will now move to closed session. We'll take a little minute if you want to say.